Alright, what's up, Dragon Brood? We have another 5-minute Eldraine standard deck tech for you. And this time, we're talking about Golgari playing the new Beseech the Mirror. But we're going to start with Tough Cookie here. Tough Cookie is actually an underrated card. I think this is going to find its way into a lot more of my list. But it's a 2-mana 2/2. When it comes into play, it makes a food. Then you can pay 3 mana and turn any non-creature artifact you control into a 4/4. That's actually really good because it means your food can be a 4/4 attacker or blocker. And then you can also sacrifice this to gain 3 life because the card itself is a food. So you're kind of getting 2 food whenever you play it, but they can actually fight, which is super nice. Obviously, we're going to be playing Shieldred. Also important that Shieldred costs 4 or less. Mosswood Dread Knight, like this card's just really good. Being able to draw, lose a life, get it to keep coming back every turn. It's a 3/2 trampler. Like, this card is so great for decks like this. It's probably going to become one of the staples of Golgari or possibly even Jund decks over the next year, I'd imagine. Also going to be playing Glissa Sunslayer. No reason to ignore this card. This card's just all around great as well. And we're playing Evolve Sleeper because, well, just a good card. It works well with Shieldred and drawing all the stuff. We can sacrifice it if we felt it's made its purpose at some point. But you know what I'm saying. The card's just actually very good. Then we're going to play Archfiend of the Dross. This is important because this is also a 4-mana thing we can go get with Beseech, which is actually pretty powerful. And it's just annoying to deal with, honestly. Now, one thing I will say that is a small concern with Archfiend is that if your opponent turns this into a 1/1, you're going to have a hard time dealing enough damage to where you're going to kill them before this kills you. So you may end up having to use your own removal to try to kill this. Just saying, it's a thing to keep in mind. Or we could sacrifice it to something with Bargain. Speaking of which, we do have Back for Seconds. This is going to let us actually return 2 things from our graveyard, and if we bargain this, we can put one of those 4 or less into play. So if they do happen to kill our Archfiend, or they do happen to kill our Shieldred, we would be able to return it, which is actually super nice. So, going to make it really hard to get rid of our stuff. Granted, there's a lot of things in Standard that are exiling, but this gives us a whole other level of attack, which is super cool. Of course, Beseech the Mirror, this is just going to let us search for whatever we want whenever we need it. And since we have stuff like Tough Cookie making the extra food, or even being able to sacrifice that card itself because we don't need it, like it does give us some other things we can actually scrap to go get some extra value here. And we're going to play a couple copies of Duress because, well, sometimes it's just good being able to get rid of problematic cards from your opponent. Our removal's not going to be anything too surprising here. These are all cards you probably know about already, but we are going to play a couple copies of Terra Sunder. This card's just really good. It lets us remove artifacts and enchantments, which there's going to be a lot of in this set as we move into Eldraine. So you want to be able to do that, but also being able to remove pretty much anything, and not just remove it, exile it, for an extra 2 mana is super good. This lets us deal with planeswalkers, creatures, whatever, at instant speed, which is also great. Then, of course, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Go for the Throat, and we will be playing 3 copies of Cut Down, because we want the regular, standard, popular removal. As far as lands, we're not going to do anything special, but we are going to play 4 copies of the new Restless Cottage. Just going to be really hard to remove this thing. Again, I think these lands are going to be so popular, you're going to see more stuff like the Field of Ruin type lands where you can just destroy non-basics. I'd be prepared for those. Make sure your lands have some regular basic lands to go search for, because I think this is going to be a very big thing. But this card itself is actually very good, being a 4/4. And on top of that, it actually lets you create a food and exile something from somebody's graveyard. And this is important because, again, if we're playing stuff like Beseech, Back for Seconds, we want to be able to have another artifact or enchantment to be able to get rid of. So this actually checks a few boxes in this deck other than just being a quality creature to keep fighting with. But yeah, that's it. A new Golgari list to take a look at. Get to play the new Beseech the Mirror. We did it in under 5 minutes. If you want to know about more decks in Standard that you can learn about in under 5 minutes, check out my other videos, because man, we have a lot to show.